Hi and welcome to Power to Speak the podcast with my fabulous guest, Joan Hodges. Joan Hodges, actress and wife of the late and legendary Chas Hodges. Yeah. Yay. And as you can probably tell, we are here at home. So I'm home with Joan today for this episode, but I did manage to get the blackboard in. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm well impressed.
So it's lovely to have you here. Thank you for doing this for me. Joan, we know each other. You are obviously friends of my parents from way back when.
Way back. I met your mum and dad when I was 15.
Yeah.
And Chas knew your dad very well. And we bumped into him one day and we were introduced and stayed friends forever.
Yeah.
From then on in.
Yeah. So what sort of year was that? I think it was before my time, wasn't it?
Right. That would be 61. 1961 was when I met Chas and started going out with Chas in November 1961. So, yeah, around about that time.
Yeah. So where did you and Chas meet?
We met at a gig. He was in a band called Mike Berry and the Outlaws, playing bass. And I'd gone to the King's Head, which was in Edmonton Green, just to see the band. And really liked the look of the quiet bass player at the back. And we started going out with each other and I was 15.
Wow. Yeah. So where did you go on your first date?
It's got to be the pub, isn't it? It probably was the 3 Tons pub, or they used to call it the Tons in Edmonton, which is where Chas's mum Daisy used to play the piano. So yeah, we went there.
Yeah. And obviously you weren't drinking because you were only 15.
Oh, no, I wasn't. Bitter lemon, although I was told by Chas's auntie if I kept drinking that, it'd rot my stomach. So I chanced it.
Start on the gin.
Yeah, and I didn't start drinking until I was about 21.
Wow.
Even when I was in America with the Playboy Club, I never drank. No. Simply because I just didn't like it, I think. Yeah.
Well, you've touched on it there, so we're going to have to talk about that. So Joan was a Playboy bunny back in the 60s.
Well, I was one of the original 6 British Playboy. There were 6 of us. They were opening up the club in Park Lane, and that was going to be, that was 1966. So they were building that and they wanted 6 British girls to send them over to America to train as bunny girls and then come back over. And then we were going to train 94 other girls. We were going to audition girls. We wanted 94. So we had 100 to open that London club. So at the time, I was working at Harrods in Knightsbridge as a telephonist, and I saw, it was my dad. And I came home one night from work, and it was a summer's evening in August, and my dad said, there's something on the Radio London. And I said, what? And he said, well, it's something, it sounds good. He said, it's a club of some sort. It's bunny girls. And he was struggling away with this. I thought, what's he talking about? It's something. And he said, they want 6 girls, but they're going to take them over to America. So I said, yeah. So where do I fit in? And he said, well, and he said, I think you're working in the evening. And he said, and you'll see more of Chas, because I was going out with Chas. Chas was gigging because he was in a band. So when I got home from work, he'd gone off to a gig. So we usually only see each other the weekend or whatever. So I went, oh, right. So what's a bunny girl? And my dad actually said, well, it's American and it's probably an ice cream parlour where you're dressed up as rabbits. And I thought, do I really want to sell ice cream? No, not really. But anyway, I sent off, they wanted a photo, I sent off a photo. And then apparently they'd had quite a lot, 1,000 photos in. And they'd whittled it down and to I don't know how many, about 50, that they actually wanted to see. And I got in that. And I got this letter saying they would like to see me at Montpelier Square, which was where Vic Lowndes lived. And he was the head of the British side of Playboy Club. No, anyway, I went, I was told afterwards, went up there, I was the only girl out of God knows how many girls that went up to audition that took their mum, because she was convinced it was something very dodgy and it might be something that she wanted to look over. So she came. And so we walked in, quite amused, Vic Lowndes, and she went and sat next to him. I was asked to go and put on the famous bunny costume. And when I came back down, she was sitting there, he'd gone and made her a cup of tea or whatever, and there was a reporter there from one of the papers, but I'm not sure which one, and chatting away to him and telling him all my life story. Anyway, then when I came in, he started to ask me some questions, and would I like to go to America? And yeah, I'd love to go to America. So off I went, chatting and going 19 to the dozen, and at the end he went, what did she just say? And so anyway, I got it. He said, would you like? And I said, yes, I would like to go to America. But then, of course, I had to tell Chas. And, of course, we've been going out with each other for, I think, about 2-3 years, because it was 15, 16, 17. Yeah, perhaps 18. Yeah. So we've been going out. And I thought, oh, God, how am I going to do this? Because he was in a band called Cliff Bennett and the Rebel Rousers. They were gigging quite a lot. They were very busy. And so I said to my mum, I said, would you tell him? What cowards. So she said, yeah, all right, I'll tell him. So he did. He came round this evening. It was a Tuesday. And I went out into my bedroom and I heard him come in and my mum say, well, we have some very exciting news because she's been offered the job. And so I went, oh, right. Oh, great. Oh, good. That'd be good. So she said, yeah. But she's going to America for a couple of months. And he went, oh, right. Oh, okay. And it was for 2 months. Well, cut very long story short, when we did get over there, the Playboy Club was taking longer than they wanted it to take. So we were told we had to stay another month. So it ended up being 7 months in America. And every now and again, I'd have to ring up and just say, I'm really sorry, but I'm not coming back next week because the club's not ready. It's not worth us coming back to do nothing. You know, we can't come back until the club's finished. And it was 7 months before I came back.
So did you have any idea what the Playboy business was?
Oh, yeah. Well, eventually, when I went up for the Vic Lowndes with my mum, I certainly knew I weren't selling ice cream. And then, of course, we got all the paperwork and there was magazines. There was the Playboy magazine that was out, and the girls, the ones that were, it was quite interesting because I was number 4. Number 1 was Dolly, and she was actually Vic Lowndes' girlfriend at the time, and then there was Catherine and Maggie, and the 3 of them, they were actresses. So I was the 4th one coming in. That was an ordinary working class girl from North London, working at Harrods, and I certainly wasn't a girl of the world, and I was very naive. Whereas these 3 girls are really new; they were part of the London scene. Yeah. I certainly wasn't. And then number 5 was Dodie Allen, and she and I, out of all of the 6 girls, we stayed friends and still are now. And she lives in Weymouth, and she's lovely. She's a dear friend. And then the last one was Kathy Bascom, and so that was us 6. But that us three, although Kathy Bascom was a beauty queen, Dodie and I were working class girls. And but as I say, we stayed friends. And so I did know roughly what was going on. And of course we were going over, and originally they wanted to see how we befriended each other and then get us as a couple and send 2 of us to the New York Playboy Club, and then 2 of us to the Chicago Club, and then 2 off to somewhere New Orleans, which would have been fantastic. And I would have loved that, because travel, I think travel is the best thing for everyone to do. And I really would love that. But when we eventually got over to Chicago, the 6 of us all started working in the Chicago Club, and it stayed. Whether they thought, they wasn't sure when we were going to go back, because they wasn't sure when the Playboy Club in London was going to open. So we just literally stayed we got very patriotic, and because we stayed in the Playboy Mansion in Chicago, but we had our own apartment in there. So we stuck a whacking great Union Jack on the door, and our song was England Swings by Roger Miller. Don't you remember that? England Swings, like it was a good song. So that was our sort of our song. So yeah, we stayed. And of course, I'm now writing the book.
Yeah.
And so, but the book is going to be from Bunny to Rabbit, because it goes into when Chas and Dave became Chas and Dave.
Yeah. But before we get on to the book, which we will do, I'm still fascinated with the whole bunny thing. So you stayed at the Playboy Bunny, the house mansion. Yeah. So was Hugh Hefner?
Oh yeah,
there.
Yeah.
So you met Hugh Hefner?
Oh yeah, yeah. I've got photos. I can show you those. He used to wander about in his pajamas and his dressing gown. It was his thing. I liked him very much. I thought he was a very nice man. Met his kids, and I think his daughter now runs the Playboy organisation.
Yeah.
He was nice. Liked him.
So the whole outfit, which obviously, and you've got the tail here today. Have you got the tail? The original bunny tail, which I think is gorgeous. Bobtail. Yeah,
and the ears. And these ears, as you can see, they're like what used to do, because that's how they were, like that. But we used to snap them in, so they would fit on your head comfortable. Yeah. Right? Didn't dig in your head. And the costumes were made to you. They were custom built for you, for your body. And that's lamb's wool. And we used to backcomb that with a teasel to get it a nice big fluffy.
Beautiful. Oh, and it's got a little hook there just hooked on.
Yeah, 3 little hooks, I think, at the back.
For those of you that are actually listening and can't see this beautiful little bunny tail here and ears, I will put some photos up, or you will have to head to YouTube and watch us on there, because you just have to see it. It's brilliant. So this was like 1965, did you say?
Yeah.
1965. I mean, you've got. I've seen that fantastic photo of you girls lined up under the BOAC banner.
We flew out with BOAC.
And so was that a publicity? Because obviously you're in the whole costume there. Did you? Yeah. Was that a day of just photography, or you didn't travel like that? No, that was the day
we were going.
Right.
And we did. We turned up at Heathrow. We actually, it's quite funny because your dad's connected to James Bond, but we each girl went in a James Bond EB6 car. We had one each, a James Bond car, because it was all the 60s thing, so very much Sean Connery then. And we each had one to drive us to Heathrow Airport. So there were 6 of them in line, and it was quite low slung, which is when you got your ears, was not that easy. So it was a bit like that. And
you were sitting on the tail?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we were in our costumes, and we all had different colours, because they do there was black, there's blue, there was red, there was gold, and they also did a really beautiful like a dark blue velvet trimmed in silver, but that was for the VIP room, and that was like a restaurant, or if there were very famous people coming in, they would go in there.
Yeah.
And only the top-notch girls would wear that blue uniform.
Yeah.
And so that was that. And then when we got to Heathrow, which was quite an eye-opener in 1965, watching 6 girls, scantily clad, going through Heathrow Airport, and that BOAC was the promotion for them, really, because we were flying out with them.
Yeah.
But when we got into the aeroplane, we changed into something comfy, and then changed back, which was quite a feat, in the little cubbyhole at the back behind curtains to change back when we arrived in Chicago O'Hare.
And so were there sort of paparazzi press there waiting for you to come up?
There was also, because one of our girls, Catherine MacDonald, was the Scottish girl, and so they had a pipe band of Scots, which was wonderful, because my granddad was a Scot, so I'm quite proud of that fact. And so we had them and a guard of honour of the American Bunny Girls.
Wow.
As we came out. And all I remember is when we landed, it was 11 o'clock at night. And Chicago is called the Windy City, and I certainly knew why. It was freezing. It was October 1965, and it was windy, and we were frozen. And then we got into the lounge part, and they bought us all cups of tea, and I think it was muffins or something like that, whatever it was. But it was a nice welcome. And but it was really funny because one of the girls, one of the American girls, I think they found they were quite disappointed in not, at the time, Twiggy was really big and of course stick thin, and we came through and not one of us was stick thin. We were quite well built, and she said, "Oh, we thought you were all going to look like Twiggy, and you don't. No, you don't."
That's fine.
Yeah.
So did you feel safe though being a Playboy bunny? I mean, were there
completely?
Were there chaperones or?
There wasn't chaperones. Well, there were room directors. They were called room directors, and they run the room, if you like, and looked after the customers and all the rest of it. There wasn't. I mean, if there was any. If anything, you'd get somebody had a bit too much to drink, they would step straight in. So I never, ever felt frightened at all. When you think about it, when I think back to if it was my daughter, so what was I? I was 18, 19, I was 18. And I was coming out of that club at 4 o'clock in the morning in Chicago.
Yeah.
But I had, there was this wonderful cab driver, and Francis, his name was, an old boy, he'd been around, a real old Chicago chap, and he would pick us up. He'd be outside, so we'd know, of course, not always would I be with one of the other girls if they were at night off and I was working, so I'd come out. But dear old Francis would be waiting there, and a minute I'd get in the back and we'd start chatting away. So it was almost like your dad picking you up, take you home.
Yeah, yeah.
So I never ever felt what I loved Chicago. I thought it was beautiful, fabulous city. Yeah.
Never been there.
Ah, it is a wonderful city.
But now, I mean, obviously, in the wake now of the sort of the Me Too movement and all of those sort of things, it's a different
completely
era, isn't it? A different way of life. The way women were treated back then is completely different.
Completely.
Now.
The message I got to any young actor is don't be bullied into doing something you don't want to do.
Yeah.
It can be worked, and
yeah, I mean, it's a terrible business for that, really, and I hope now it's changed, and
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so many, they come out now, don't they, and they don't put up with it, and so they do. They're more assertive, more stronger, and don't put up with it.
No, and hopefully the directors now understand that actually.
I think so. Yeah.
The world has changed.
Oh yeah.
So what was it that made you want to get into acting? I mean, obviously you did the Playboy Bunny back then when you were sort of a teenager, but was there something in you before then that wanted to perform?
Oh yeah, I'd wanted to act since I was a kid, but I never thought. Well, I did want to go to drama school, and I asked my dad, who was a London bus driver, and I said, Dad, I really would love to go to drama school. Can I go to RADA? And he literally laughed at me. He went, it's not for us. He said, you've only got to look at the name. Royal. He said, it's not for working class people. So I said, forget that one. And so I did forget that one because that's what my dad had said. And so I had done, when I was 9 to 5 working, I joined a local amateur group. It was the Co-op Amateur Theatre Group. And the very, very first play I did was The Winter's Journey by Clifford Odette. And I played Nancy Stoddard, an American girl. So I'd gone right in deep end, not only the first thing, but I was American as well. And I think I must have been 15 then. I loved it. And I thought, I so wish I could go to drama school, but truly didn't think I could.
Yeah. And I have to say, I mean, obviously my dad was a stuntman. So, he kind of was in that world anyway. He'd been through that himself.
Yeah.
Coming from Edmonton. Yeah. I mean, he got into acting as well, but in a roundabout way because people from Edmonton, from North London, just didn't do that sort of thing. And I had a similar experience when I went to my careers officer when I was 16 with my mum sat beside me, sat just behind me. And the woman said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to be an actor. And she sort of went,
yeah.
She said, do you belong to any drama groups? And I said, well, not really. Do you go to the theatre much? It was like, I live on a council estate in North London. No. Yeah. She said, no, you don't want to be an actor. She said, if you wanted to be an actor, you'd live, die and breathe the theatre. What else can you do? So, well, I'm not bad at art. And that was it. I was at art school, which I didn't mind. I loved art. But it was, you just got the feeling that it wasn't for you. It wasn't meant for you.
Exactly. Well, I went to one of them career people when I was 14, 15 with my mum. And they said, well, what do you like? I said, well, I love people. I love working with people. And I'm thinking in my head, like to be part of a theatre group or whatever. That's what I'm thinking. And they sent me to Woolworths. Okay. Yeah. And I weren't going to have that. No.
I do wonder now whether there's anything in that work experience that is anything to do with the theatre. Because back then it wasn't. If you wanted work experience, you went into a bank, you went if you were lucky, you went into retail. There was nothing like that. I mean, I should have been a director, but nobody told me I could be a director.
No, exactly. No,
there was nothing.
Yeah. It's true, isn't it? I mean, you'd be a great director. And I would have loved that opportunity, but I also believe that. I mean, there's many actors out there that haven't even been to drama school, David Jason being one of them.
Right.
But he went into amateur theatre and shone and went from strength to strength. But I think you don't realise the opportunities, like you say, if somebody had said, well, I would have loved to have been a director, to play. But you obviously didn't think you could. I didn't think I could be a professional actor because I was not well spoken and didn't have the right accent or the right whatever. But everyone should try and do and be what they want to be. Nothing should stop you.
No, and I think our children and that next generation certainly have that. I suppose because my generation and yours too have kind of been able to say to them, go out there and do it. Whereas before that, I think that next generation down the line didn't understand.
Well, it's like my dad. I think with my dad, he was working. Well, he was a bus driver, a London bus driver, but he thought for a girl, what you did is you're a kid, you go to school, you leave school, you go and work in a factory or a shop, you get married, you have kids. Well, look, that's your life. And that's how a lot of working class people thought. It's like university. I never thought I could go to university.
No.
Never. No. That was for the rich people, the whatever. Not for working class.
No. No, absolutely. Even in my generation, I went to a grammar school, and everybody kind of was geared towards going to university. But even then, it never crossed my mind that I could go to uni.
No, I certainly never thought I could do that.
Yeah. So obviously, you did the traditional thing. You married Chas.
Yeah.
In what, 1961? Did you say?
1966. Met him in 61. Met him in 61, and went to America in 65. Through to 66, and then I came home from Chicago in I think it was April 66, and the Playboy Club in Park Lane that opened in June, July time. Lots of fanfare and all the rest of it. And then Chas and I got married in October of 66.
So you were a bunny at that point when you got married?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, because I've seen that little clip where it's obviously Rebel Rouser marries Bunny.
That's it.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
And so, how long did you carry on with that before?
I left when I got married.
Oh.
Yeah, I just
was that expected of you to leave that?
No, I think that because they had great ideas for me. They asked me if I wanted to. They were opening a club in Jamaica.
Ooh.
And they wanted me to go over and to become what they called a bunny mother, which is like the supervisor. She was in charge of all the bunny girls and looked after them. And I would have quite liked that. I think I would have gone down that route. But I thought I'd just been away to America for 7 months. I don't think Chas would take too kind for me to say, I'm just shooting off to Jamaica for a few months. I think I'd done my travelling.
Yeah.
Well, as a single person, I did plenty of travelling with Chas and Dave. And that.
So, just the bunny girls, what was their job? What did you do as a bunny girl in the club?
You were a glorified waitress, if you like. Funnily enough, when I went to Chas and I got married in St Andrew's Church in Enfield Town. And when I went to go to see the vicar and talk about the wedding and all the rest of it, and he wanted to know what my job was, and I said, I'm a Playboy bunny girl, he wouldn't put it down.
Ooh.
Oh, no. Oh. And he put, what does that do? What does that entail? And I said, well, I'm at a Playboy club and I serve drinks and dinner. And so he said, I'll just put waitress. So, I went down as a waitress, not a Playboy bunny girl, which would look quite good on a marriage certificate.
Yeah.
So, no, you wouldn't have that. And so there was all different levels with the Playboy Club. On the ground floor, it was called like the Playmate Bar, and that was the whole walls were covered in the Playmate, the centrefold of the Playboy magazine. And you could go in there for lunch, so you could get a sandwich or a coffee or whatever. And then you went up there was the dining room and the club itself. There was the VIP room, which I told you about, where you could have beautiful food, and it was like a restaurant, if you like. And then right at the top, it was the showroom, and that's where they'd get acts. And it could be a band, it could be a comedian. They had a resident band that played, so you could dance. So there was different levels of whatever. What was really exciting at the time, of course, it was 1966 and it was the World Cup. And so we had quite a lot of people from, I know there was a lot of people from Brazil, loads of people. It was packed with people that come over for the actual match, and footballers, of course. And that was an exciting time. And so there was never a dull moment, and I enjoyed it because I loved being with people as well. Yeah. And I enjoyed my time there.
Did you come across any really famous people at that point?
Loads. First was Frank Sinatra.
Oh wow.
And he came in the club, and I just happened to be fortunate enough to be working lunches, and so I was there. And the next minute, they were all so excited that Frank Sinatra was in. And he was doing, making film. And I think it's called The Naked Runner. and he played like an ex-CIA agent, and who happened to be in the Playboy Club, and he wanted 4 Playboy bunny girls. There were 4, and he just said, "I'll have the brunette and the redhead and the blonde," and so he picked me. I was standing there, happened to be lucky enough to be on lunches, and so I was one of the 4. And but what I did remember that really stuck in my mind was because I thought he was a really nice chap. He was there was certainly no showbiz with him, or none of that. And there was 3 of the cleaners that had come up because they knew Frank Sinatra was there. And he went over to talk to him, and that impressed me. And I thought, he needn't have done that, but he went over to ask who they were, and he signed an autograph or whatever. But he needn't have done that, and I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah.
And he was married to Mia Farrow at the time, so she was over with Trini Lopez, and one of our girls. She went out with Trini while he was over there, and there was also they were filming the Dirty Dozen film.
My dad was in that.
Was he really?
Yeah.
Well, blimey. Well, because they all came into the club, so we had them all. I can't rattle them off now.
There was Lee Marvin.
Yeah,
definitely.
That's it.
Charles Bronson.
That's it.
There's one that Dad always talks about. I can't remember.
Was it Lee Van Cleef or Margaret?
Was it?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. But they were all staying at the Hilton, which was just a little way along. And so they came in the club. But he was great. There were people that came in. When we auditioned for the girls, we auditioned in the Hilton. And while we were there, Lucille Ball, she was staying there. And so I got to meet her briefly. But she was pleasant, she was nice.
Yeah.
And but literally just because we were there.
Yeah. Did you get many women in the club? Was it all men?
No, it was a lot of women. Because they'd bring their wives in because it was a restaurant.
Yeah.
Definitely. 50-50.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So I wonder then, obviously, the idea of Playboy and the Bunnies has kind of changed over the years.
Yeah. It was very select, and they used to say, you can look but don't touch. And it was. Girls were not allowed to go out with the customers. I mean, that was the rule. I'm sure the rule was broken on occasions, but that was the rule. And it was very elite. So the girls were they were respected.
Yes.
They were respected. And that was good. And it was, there were. I mean, there was some lovely, really, I'll tell you who else came in. She was lovely. It was Julie Felix, singer called Julie Felix.
I don't know.
Yeah, she was lovely. She was great. She'd come in. There was also the wonderful, the dear Sharon Tate.
Oh gosh.
She came in with Roman Polanski. Very, very sad. But she came in. She was lovely, beautiful, lovely woman. So they were always in, but you didn't take much notice. It was no big deal.
No.
You were just serving them their drinks or wherever. I used to like working in the VIP room because it was more calm and relaxing, and but it was good all the way through. Enjoyed all of it.
So I mean, when you think about it now, you were there in the heyday of the 60s, all of that, you know, amazing stuff going on with the Beatles and the Stones and all of that. So while you were doing that, what was Chas doing?
He was in a band called Cliff Bennett and the Rebel Rousers, playing bass, and he was really full on gigging, because that was another thing. Going back to when I got offered the job, he was actually going to Denmark or Holland with the band for about a month, I think, which I thought worked out pretty good with me. If going off to America, I thought that'd work out. Little realising it was going to be 7 months. But And so what he would do in the evening, so if I came out, say 3 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock, whenever we finished, he'd be outside waiting for me, which was lovely, you know. And he would have been dropped off by one of the members of the band coming back from a gig, because I had a little white Mini, very 60s. And so we'd drive back, you know, I'd drop him home and then go home myself.
Yeah. So was he good? Because his mum was play piano, didn't she? Like you were saying, she used to play in the pub.
In the Tons pub in Edmonton, Daisy. She was well known, fabulous pianist. She really was. And she actually had Lionel Bart came in there one night.
Wow.
And I think he had a musical out called Twang or something like that. And it must have been nearby, because he came in just for a drink. And he just loved her playing. She had a real good, she could play vamp piano, which, you know, anybody playing piano knows what that. And she was great. She was wonderful, but she played there for years.
Yeah. And
she literally, because she was one parent, because Chas's dad had died when he was 4, she kept the family by, they lived with Daisy's mum, their nan, and she would look after them while she went to play and literally take the act round, and that fed them.
Wow.
That's how she fed them.
So Chas learnt his piano playing from his mum then?
Yeah, from his mum and his nan.
Right.
I think his nan taught him boogie woogie piano, and of course then it really blossomed when he was touring with Jerry Lee Lewis. Because he would be standing right by Jerry Lee playing bass and just watching his hands. So he learned a lot from Jerry Lee just by watching him.
Yeah, I was saying to you earlier that I didn't realise how much Chas had done before Chas and Dave.
Yeah.
So how did he end up playing with Jerry Lee?
Well, he was in the band called The Outlaws, Mike Berry and The Outlaws, and they were sort of the house band, if you like, of the legendary Joe Meek, who wrote Telstar, and they were his house band. That they would do his songs. He would like hum something that he could think of, because he couldn't play anything, and they would pick it up and do it. Richie Blackmore, he was part of the Outlaws, and so, and he had a hit with Mike Berry and the Outlaws called the Tribute to Buddy Holly. Joe Meek wrote that. And then, so he was there. And then I think Jerry Lee was coming over and they needed a band. And I think it was Sharon Osbourne's dad. He was a real big promoter.
Yeah,
and I think remember his name. His name's gone right out of my head. It come back in a minute.
Arden.
I said Don Arden. Don Arden. And they needed, and so they said, you know, do you want to? Oh, did he? Crikey! I mean, Chas absolutely loved Jerry Lee Lewis and loved his playing, his music. So they went on the road with Jerry Lee. I think they went over to America. When they were over there, the Beatles were playing in Hamburg.
Yeah.
And so Chas knew them really well, especially Paul and John. And then they just was finishing that tour, and Gene Vincent was coming over. So Don said to him, Jerry Lee's going back home. Do you want to back Gene Vincent? Yeah. So he went on the road with Gene Vincent, and that was great. He loved that. Yeah. Good time.
So was he away doing that while you were married? Is that that was sort of happening around about that time?
Oh yeah. It was all. I remember there was a real. It made the headlines, and this was before we got married. And Jerry Lee Lewis did this thing called Rock Across the Channel, and it was a boat that left from Southend. Well, actually, I think it left from Liverpool and it came down to Southend, stopped at Southend, and was going over to France. And it was called Rock Across the Channel. And I got a feeling Gene Vincent was up, but Jerry Lee was definitely. And I think Gene was as well. And it was packed full of rockers and the best music you could possibly think of. And we went over, and I went with his mum because I took Daisy down because I had my little car then, so we went down. And we went across the channel, and it was pure rock and roll. It was an absolute, if you love rock and roll, it was amazing. And then when we got over to Calais, they all got off, and I think they went to some club there and they were playing there. When they were coming back, I know it all kicked off. I think a lot of the lads had had too much to drink. They were going in to get a Coca-Cola, and they were being charged about £1 a bottle or something. It was something that kicked it all off. And there was a bit of a riot going on. And to top that off, just as they were coming back on the boat, we were getting onto the boat, and Chas realised that his amp was still down by the dock side. And so he said, hang on. He said, my amp's still down there. And so they said, no, we're casting off. You've got to get... And he was on the gangplank walking up. And he just stood there and he said, I'm not moving until someone gets my amp. You know, and so he did. He stayed there. And so somebody ran and got his amp and brought it back on. Because when we got back, I didn't realise, but it had made the newspapers, riot in France and this. And, of course, there was no such thing as mobile phones at the time. And my mum was having 40 fits, opening it was on the front page, the picture of Rock Across the Channel, riots in France, knowing her daughter was in the middle of it all. And so it wasn't until I actually got home and she said, oh, never again. And I said, well, it was all right. I was all right because I was away from it, you know, because if you saw trouble, you didn't go towards it, you went away from it, you know. And that was rock and roll, as they say.
So how did the start of married life then, how did that look for the two of you? Did you have your own place?
We got a flat. We got a flat in Cockfosters, and things were pretty good then, because by this time he was now in Cliff Bennett and the Rebel Rousers, and they were a top band. They'd had Got to Get You Into My Life, which was a hit record. And Cliff Bennett, fabulous voice, a real good voice, and fabulous band, they really were. And Chas loved it, loved being in it. And so we started out, as I say, got married in 1966. Our first child came along, Juliet, and she was born in 1967. And it was wonderful. We were, you know, just bowling along merrily until the band split up, and suddenly, from getting really good money, we weren't getting anything, and then we were struggling, and it looked like we were going to be evicted from our flat. So that sort of took a downward turn. We just had Juliet then, and so we had the bailiffs round, and I'll never forget because we had this flat above a shop, and when we got there, and I had Juliet, she was 2, and he said it was a real nasty bit of work, this bailiff, and he said, right, he said, I'll give you, I'll give you 1 hour to get whatever you really want out. Because other than that, they were going to lock it up and have the lot, right? Yeah. Well, Chas had a piano in there, and all his amp and his guitars and the rest of it. And I remember there was a younger chap there, and he was lovely. I think he felt sorry for what was going on. Of course, I didn't know then what you know now, but apparently they cannot confiscate what you use to earn a living. They can't do that. We didn't know that. Right. And so old Chas desperately, he wanted his guitars and he wanted his piano. And so Chas said, I've got to have that piano. I've got to have my piano. And I said, oh, come on then. So me and him were trying to push this out. And this young lad stepped forward to help. He said, I'll do that, he said. And this nasty bit of work said, no, let her do it. Yeah. So the young kid couldn't help me. So I did, for the love of my darling husband, helped him push this piano out. And then took his amp out, and his guitars. And at the end of it, we'd got it out onto the platformy bit of above where our flat is, where the stairs were. And he said, it looks like rain. I'll give you a week. You can put it back. Yeah. So we did. We pushed it back because we didn't want it all out in the rain for a week.
No.
So we pushed it back, and he'd given us a week to get rid of it. So life was tough then.
Yeah.
And we moved in with my mum and dad. So we because there was nowhere else to go until we got offered a flat in Edmonton. And it was while we were there that our darling Kate come along, our second daughter. And she was born in North Mid, like Chas
Same
was
as
North
me.
Mid. That's what I knew. Yeah, all the good people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so that was there, and we were there for. And then by that time, Chas had gone into a band called Head, Hands and Feet, and that was another good band. And so he was in that, and he actually went over to America touring with them. And we were there for a couple of years and then moved out and actually got our own place. And we got like a little bungalow in Broxbourne.
Right.
And that's where our son came along, Nick. And that's our 3 wonderful kids.
Yeah. And so when did Dave come along?
Ah, bless him. Well, Chas met Dave through me. Chas had, and this was when we were, before I'd gone to America. I think I'd just been offered the chance to go to America. And Chas had left me, took me home, and he was on his way back home, got up to the top of the road to get the bus, and he'd missed the last bus. And so he started walking from Enfield to Edmonton. And this car came along and stopped, and it was driven by his old schoolmate, Brian Juniper, and sitting next to him was Dave Peacock. And these two were in a band together. And Brian said, what are you up to? He said, I've just taken my girlfriend home. He said, I've missed the last bus. He said, jump in, we'll take you home. And so they got chatting. This is the first time he's ever met Dave Peacock. And they've got the same musical loves. They were both bass players at that time. And Chas said, well, my girlfriend, she's just going to America. And so he said, do you fancy going to see a band? And so that's how the two of them became friends. So while I was in America, they were going to see different bands. And we got really friendly. When I came back, Dave came to our wedding, and which was lovely. And then it was only every Christmas we would go round to Mari, Dave's sister, and we would have Christmas parties always. And Chas would get on the piano. Dave would be on a banjo or guitar. And it's one day Chas just said to him, how about if I stay on the piano and you play bass, stay with your bass, and we get a band?
Yeah.
And that's how Chas and Dave. And when they first started, it literally was just Chas and Dave, the two of them, just went out together.
Yeah.
And it was only after 2 years they said, let's get a drummer. And so they got Mickey Burt, who was the drummer from Cliff Bennett and the Rebel Rousers. That's how he came to join them.
Yeah. Were they writing their own stuff at that point? Were they doing
they do a lot of covers and a lot of rock and roll. And then they did start writing their own stuff and then bringing it in. And the one that was really pick up, people would say, do that old darling song. And they call it, and that's There's No Pleasing You.
Yeah.
But of course, old darling. And so that was the old darling song.
Yeah.
And so they brought that out and away it went.
Yeah, I love that song.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant song. Yeah.
And so then you obviously were at home with the kids.
Yeah.
Chas was off touring.
Yeah.
But obviously that old acting bug was still there.
Oh yeah. I really would have loved to have gone to drama school. And it wasn't until I was 40 and I thought the kids grown up, they've got their own lives. I think we still had Nick was at home, and I thought I'm going to go to drama school. And I applied and went to Mountview, where I went,
yeah,
and your dad,
yeah,
and I was there. When I came out from Mountview, didn't know what to do. Bought the Stage magazine, and looked in, and the Millfield Theatre in Edmonton were holding auditions. They wanted a company of 20 actors to start a rep company. And so I applied. I did the week's workshops, and I got offered to be part of the company, which was fabulous. I loved it, absolutely loved it. And the very first professional job I did was playing the nurse in Romeo and Juliet, which I loved. I loved Shakespeare.
Yeah, I love it. And the nurse is a brilliant part. I've never played it, but yeah, loved
wonderful.
It. Great part.
I played her as an Italian, and it was a joy. I loved it. And a lovely actor called Dominic Frisby played Romeo, and I think he's stand-up comedian now. I think.
I don't know his name.
Yeah, look him up.
Yeah.
He was a lovely chap, like Dominic.
And that's where you got your agent from, is it? That's where.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't actually, because from there, a friend of mine, literally an actor who'd been, he played the friar in Romeo and Juliet, and he'd written this play that he was putting on at the Tristan Bates Theatre at the Actors Centre in London. And so I thought, if I'm going to get an agent, here I am in London for a week. No one can say, oh, it's too far to come, because they're all pretty much based in London. So I wrote to every single agent I could get, and the one of them, I got offered two, and I went with, it's Felix de Wolf, who I'm still with. So I've been with them over 20 years, and they came to see it and then offered me representation, and I've been very happy being with them.
Yeah.
Great. They're lovely.
So what did Chas think of you doing all of that? Was he quite happy for you?
Oh, yeah. I think he was, yeah, he was pleased. He knew I was doing something I absolutely loved. And all the way through, I mean, as things picked up and television started, he would be the one to help me learn my lines.
Right.
No, when I did Only Fools and Horses, he was doing the lines for that. Everything he's done, he did. And so he was there, and very, very, very supportive.
Yeah. Mm. Well, you both came to see me in a fringe production.
Yeah, Hen and Chickens.
Hen and Chickens, that's
Hen and
right.
Chickens. Yeah, we did.
I think you were the only people in the audience, I have to say.
Oh, I think there's some more. Yeah, I think there was. Yeah.
It's that old adage of, if there's more people in the audience than there are on the stage, you shouldn't actually perform. And I think there was only two of us on the stage, so there must have been at least three people in the audience.
Well, I don't go with that, because I did one of the first things I did. Now, was that? I'm trying to think if that was before. I did a pantomime in Chelsea, and there was. And once again, it was Aladdin, and I played the Empress of China. Once again, that was wonderful. I absolutely loved that. But we had one actor in the company who, one Saturday afternoon, I think there was only about 6 in there, and he came flying out as we were getting changed and said, right, he said, oh, we'll make this a quick one. There's only 6 out there. And I said, no, we won't. I said, that's 6 people that have paid their ticket to watch this show with children. We do the show, we do the whole show. And he wasn't happy and wouldn't talk to me.
Oh.
He read the but no, as far as I'm concerned, they've paid their money, you give them a show.
Yeah. What do you prefer, theatre or film? I mean, or TV, any camera or stage?
I love the company feeling of theatre. I love theatre. I mean, that's where I started. It was the theatre, and I loved everything about it. Even down to when we first did Romeo and Juliet, we did literally 3 shows a day. We did 10 o'clock in the morning for the schools, the local schools, and then we did an afternoon show, 2 o'clock, I think, and then we did a 7 o'clock show. And that was quite something, being Romeo and Juliet.
3 times a day.
3 times a day. And but what I loved was we would get all those local school kids in that had never, ever been to theatre before, ever. They'd never set foot in theatre. These working class kids would come in, and they'd start chucking stuff about, shouting and hollering or whatever. But by the end of it, there was a quietness, and then we would go out after the show to talk to the kids, and the pure magic in their eyes. There wasn't one that it hadn't moved.
Yeah,
they loved theatre.
Yeah,
and I think that should really be encouraged.
Yeah,
in schools today.
I mean, you think if for us back at that age, if I'd have been to, I mean, I kind of had been to pantomimes and stuff. But I don't think I'd seen any kind of real theatre.
No.
When I was a kid, only because it just wasn't there.
It was out of our league, if you like. Yeah. I mean, my mum and dad would never have thought of taking me ever. They didn't even take me to pantomime.
No.
But that was magic. I love that. So in answer, I love it all in its own way. Of course, there's more standing about and that with film and TV. With theatre, you're there, you're in there, and you've got.
Well, that's what I love. You get on at the beginning and you get off at the end.
Exactly, exactly, and it's great. It's a great feeling.
Yeah.
So I've got a real warmth in my heart for theatre.
Yeah.
But it's fun doing the rest of whatever, film or television.
Yeah. I mean, I think we had a conversation earlier about just the fact that the training you get as an actor is something that you can kind of use in any walk of life.
Oh yeah.
It's the confidence, the playfulness.
Yeah.
Improvising, something we both love.
Oh yeah.
It's just making it up as you go along. It's just a brilliant thing to do. But in life, in business, when you're out there in the wider world, just all of those sort of things that we learn when we were doing our acting training is, all comes.
It does. And I've always said, if I had a gift of a newborn baby, of what to give that child, it would be the gift of confidence, because that is so important to feel your own worth.
Yeah.
And know you can do whatever you want to do. Put your mind to it if you really want to do it, and not for have anybody to knock you down.
No.
And say you can't. Like with my dad, we were working class. No, you do not go to drama school.
Yeah.
It's not for us. But for kids to have that confidence is a wonderful thing.
Yeah. And actually, stage schools as parts of stage schools that aren't, necessarily the best, but just in terms of getting kids out there and feeling and playing and creating, that's where confidence comes from. Is just to know that you can step out in front of people and
exactly.
Be something.
And also you can see, I think, the magic of child actors. If you can see that there's no hidden agenda or you mustn't do this or you shouldn't do that, they just do it.
Yeah.
And I love seeing that with young kid actors. It's wonderful just to see that.
Yeah. I mean, your three kids are all musical, aren't they?
They're all musical. They're all taken after their dad. Juliet, she's the eldest one. They all play piano, but Nick, the younger of my son, he was the drummer with Chas and Dave for 10 years when Mickey Burt left, and which was a perfect person to take over because he'd grown up with Mickey Burt being the drummer since he was born. Yeah. And so he knew it was wonderful, him taking over. And then Kate, and they're all different. Juliet, she does gigs with Ed Tudor Pole and other bands she goes out with. Kate, she's written a musical and she loves Noel Coward and the 30s music. And Nick, Depeche Mode, he loves Depeche Mode and all the electronic synthesizer type music. Yeah. They've all got different loves of their music, which is wonderful.
Yeah, and I've heard some of Kate's stuff. It's brilliant stuff she writes. It's amazing.
Oh, yeah. She's a really clever songwriter.
Yeah.
Kate. Yeah. She really is.
But did I see something? Did Juliet done a hootenanny? Did she do a hootenanny? No, with Jules Holland?
No.
Oh, perhaps that was something I saw somewhere.
No, Nick was with his dad and Dave when they did Hootenanny.
Yeah.
So Nick was there. Nick's done it. No.
Yeah.
She's done, Kate was on the Royal Albert Hall with them. She's did a sport on there.
Because I can imagine Chas and Jules Holland jamming.
Oh yeah. That they, because Jules came on one of their albums and he played with Hugh Laurie.
Right,
Yeah.
No, Hugh Laurie's quite a
he's a good pianist, yeah. And Albert Lee, he came on.
Yeah.
And also J.I. Allison, which was Buddy Holly's drummer. He flew over from America and he's on that album. But the house has always been full of music.
Yeah.
I mean, it's never been so quiet since Chas died because, his pianos, his guitars, they're all there. Yeah. But he could never go past a piano, his piano, without suddenly going into something, He'd do it all the time.
Yeah.
And luckily, all 3 kids are musical. That don't always happen with musical. Their kids don't always become whatever. But my 3 certainly are. They're all musical.
And mine too. And there's my daughter's suddenly was writing songs in lockdown, and I don't know where that comes from. If she'd been an actress or a stunt person falling off high buildings, I would have understood.
Yeah.
But the songwriting, I don't know where that's come from. But it's lovely.
So did you ever sing? I mean, in shows and stuff?
No, not really. I mean, I can remember doing an audition song.
Yeah.
I did.
Right.
What was that one? Stockard Channing for Grease.
Oh.
There's Worse Things I Could Do.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a lovely song.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's some notes in there that I could feel people when I was singing it, kind of get into the climb as far away as possible. So no, but I do love I love singing, but I'm not overly good.
No. Yeah. Well, I did, and it was an amateur pantomime of Aladdin, and I played Aladdin, and I had to come down. It was when Aladdin has found the cave of jewels and God knows what, and come down these stairs. Packed house it was, and I had to sing Bloody Goldfinger. I mean, there's Shirley Bassey going for it, like Goldfinger, and off I went. And at the end of it was so awful. By this time I'd reached the front of the stage, and I looked at all these faces, and I went, sorry about that. And the musical director, boom, he said, you don't ever apologise for that. And I said, but it was awful. Jesus Christ.
Oh, but you got connected to another one of my podcast guests, Jay Alexander, we were talking about earlier, who was obviously a musical director.
It was really weird. You started talking about Jay, and I believe it was through, it was Ray Cooney had written this musical with Chas and Dave's music. Funny enough, it was before that had happened, Chas and John Sullivan had spoken about, John Sullivan wanted to write a Chas and Dave, a musical with Chas and Dave music, because John Sullivan was a huge fan of Chas and Dave's music. And of course, now there is one in the West End, which John's son, Jem, has written with Paul Whitehouse, Paul Whitehouse. And that's doing great guns in the West End. I mean, of course, through lockdown and all what we've had to put up with the last 2 years, I think. But I think it's reopened, and Paul Whitehouse is playing Grandad in it. It's brilliant. He really is. And it's a great show. But John really wanted to write that musical. And him and Chas were chatting about it. And of course, then sadly, John died, which was an awful loss. And then Ray Cooney come up with this idea. And Jay was in that, playing the music man. Oh, he started out, I don't know if he went all the way through it, but I know he was there. That's when I met him.
Yeah.
Lovely chap.
Yes. And then obviously the next connection then is that Jay Alexander and Jill Nalder, who's also been a guest, share a flat together and have done since back in the Pink Palace, which was obviously then turned into a TV series by Russell T Davies.
Yeah.
It's a Sin, which is fabulous. And you were in It's a Sin.
I'm very proud to be in that show. I thought it was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful. And I was in episode 1 with the wonderful Callum Howells, who played Colin, the Welsh boy.
Lovely Colin.
Oh, lovely Colin. And that was a tremendous show.
Yeah, it was.
And I was incredibly proud to be part of that.
Yeah. But I mean, Only Fools and Horses, another classic. You were in that, and you were in was it Rock and Chips? What did they call that?
Rock and Chips.
It was like a prequel.
A prequel when Del Boy was a young lad, and I was the landlady of the Nag's Head pub, and that was fun as well. It was great. I think John Sullivan had a real knack of getting a great cast that gelled and liked one another, and there was a great atmosphere. And I remember when I got the part in the Christmas, funnily enough, it was on last week, my brother saw it, and it's called If They Could See Us Now. And the Only Fools and Horses was when he went to the wrong funeral of Uncle Albert, right? And he came to my house. But anyway, we were doing that, and I'd gone down, and they were shooting in Western Supermare. That's where they were doing it. And so I'd gone down there the night before, and I just couldn't believe I was actually in Only Fools and Horses, and really nervous. And anyway, got down there, and we were all staying in this one hotel. And I'd gone down there about 6 o'clock to get something to eat. And I thought, I'll have some supper and then go back and go over my lines or have an early night. And so I'd got this salad or whatever I'd got in front of me. And just as I got it there, doors swung open and in walked Nick Lyndhurst. It was, crikey. There was Nick Lyndhurst, there was Cassandra. Yeah. To my shame, I've forgotten her name. There was
Sue. No.
Yeah. Marlene. She's wonderful. She came in. And it's awful when you can only think of their actual names.
I know. We all know them so well by their character.
It really is. And and they came walking in, and Mike, the one that was with the bar, behind the bar. And anyway, and Nick Lyndhurst, I just looked up as they came in, and Nick Lyndhurst said, "Hello." And he said, you in this? And I said, oh, yeah. I'm playing this Marilyn who's in this house. And he said, so what are you doing here? So I said, I'm just having me dinner. So he went, not on your own, you're not. And he picked up my plate. Come on, follow us. And I went in with them. I couldn't believe it. And he sat me down and sat next to me. They all sat around the table. Well, I couldn't believe it. And they were so friendly, and you could tell how much they liked one another, and the laughs they were having. Oh, do you remember when so-and-so? Do you remember when we did that episode? It was magic. Yeah. It was a moment I would never have dreamt of, that I was sitting with Nick. I can't say enough about that dear man, because he's not only a wonderful actor, he's a really good actor to work with. Yeah. Very generous. And as I say, it made me feel part of that company, which was lovely. Yeah. It was a real gent. It's nice. Yeah. Yeah.
And you are going to be part of another very famous cast, very famous soap.
I know. I'm really excited about that.
Are you allowed to tell us what's going on with that?
All I can tell you is that I'm going to be in EastEnders on February the 17th. And that's all I can tell you.
Oh, so we don't know who you're going to be? You can't?
I'm not going to say a word in case I say what I mustn't say. So, yes, I am very, very, very excited about being in that show. And the actor I worked with was lovely.
Good. Oh, that's good news.
Yeah, she was lovely.
Oh, it was a she.
It was a she.
Okay. So no more clues. We won't get any more clues. You have to watch on the 17th of February.
On the 17th of Feb, you will see me, and I'll tell you more when I can tell you more. Yeah. But it's so you kind of think, don't say you must say, no, okay, I won't say anything apart from I'm very, very excited at being in this show.
Brilliant. Well, it's. I mean, how long has it been going now?
Crikey, 25 is it?
Oh, God, more than that.
It is longer, isn't it?
Yeah, I think God. Yeah, 80s, wasn't it? Back in the 80s it started. Yeah, iconic iconic.
Well, I remember years ago when I was doing that play at the Tristram, so going back, June Brown came to see that show, and I was having a drink with her afterwards, and she said, "Joan, you should be in our show." And I thought, well, it's taken a long time, but I've got there.
You've got there. Do you know who else was in there? Because I came to see you in that play. Wasn't Jonathan Ross's mum?
Jonathan Ross's mum. Sadly, she died a couple of years ago. She was in it. And the one that played Pete Bill.
Oh, right. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
He was in it.
Yeah.
And we terrible.
Yeah. Well, we'll think of it later.
Yeah.
So obviously you've got so much to write in this book. So how's that going? Have you actually written anything yet?
Yeah, I've written. It's taken me a long time because, the truth be known, I'm not very disciplined in sitting down and writing. As I say, if I get a call from the kids, I think, yeah, all right, okay. But I am now. This year is going to be the year I finish this book, and I'm about halfway through. And it's called From Bunny to Rabbit, and I'm not quite sure whether to literally write about purely my time as a Playboy Bunny girl, and then take it into the Chas and Dave, or well, I'm not quite sure where to. This is I need a publisher or an editor or whatever you need to guide me on the best format. So anybody out there who fancies giving me a hand,
a call out there for anybody that thinks. So I suppose it's the structure, isn't it?
The structure.
That's a lot of time.
Yeah,
from 1966 through to sort of now.
Yeah, although I could just take it up to when he met Dave, and from then on in, because I've got thousands of photos. I have and stories that are in with when I was at Playboy Club, and also the Chas and Dave experience, which was magical. It really was.
Did it feel like a bit of a whirlwind now when you look back?
Yeah, there was never ever a dull moment. I mean, there was never something was happening the whole time. It really was exciting things. It was good. And it was funny because I remember when we first moved into house, I think it was in the 80s, and there was somebody, as we were coming in, I was going in, and he said, "Are you the lady who's married to Chas and Dave?" And I thought, it's always been, and dear Sue, who was Dave's late wife, she always got it. You know, are you married to Chas and Dave? Oh, you're married to Chas. It was always we were that.
Yeah.
And what was a magical moment was when they did the This Is Your Life. Do you remember when This Is Your Life was on?
Oh, well, I remember This Is Your Life.
That was fantastic because we were, when they first approached us, talk about nerve-wracking, because they said, I bet you told them they were going to be on it. I swear we never did. And it was the hardest thing, because I would be sitting down watching This Is Your Life, and Chas would suddenly come in, and I'd have to get up and go out, because I thought, he's going to read me, and think, are we going to be on that? And I'd have to go out. But they were, and what was really difficult was that at this particular point, they'd come and and Sue and I, Dave's wife, we had a magic word, and it was Brent Cross. So if we had to go and they wanted to meet us, the production team, I'd tell Sue and I are going up to Brent Cross, oh yeah, okay. And, that'd be fun. That's how we'd get out of it. And I'll never forget, when it was going on, sadly, Chas's mum wasn't very well, and she knew the good thing is she knew they were going to be on it, and she was really excited. And at that point, I think she would have been in a wheelchair because she really wasn't well. And so I said to her, I'd decorate her chair. I said, I'll put all lights on and stuff. Then sadly, she died, and so we held it back. Because we thought, no, we can't have it now.
No.
So we held it, and I think they held it for a year. And so that whole year, we had to put it out of our heads. And we didn't know it was going to be a year. But then, about say 8 months later, I got a phone call. This is your life. Can you speak? And yeah. Chas was not there. So we're going with the show, and I think it was in a New Year's show, so it was going to be a big time. And so he said, "Can you get in touch with Sue, Dave's wife?" And I said, "Yeah, leave that with me, and we'll have a meeting in London at this hotel." Okay, fine. So I rang Sue up, and I just said to her, because I didn't know if Dave was there, and I said, "Hello, Sue." I said, "Brent Cross," and she went, "What?" And I said, "Brent Cross." She said, "What about Brent Cross?" So I said, "Do you want to go?" So she said, "Oh, yeah, when do you want to go?" And I said to her, "Well, okay then, we'll go tomorrow, about 11 o'clock, and I'll pick you up." "Yeah, okay." So of course, when I got round there, and I said, "We're going up to London," she said, "Oh, we're going to Brent Cross." And I said to her, "This is your life." I said, I couldn't say it. I said, if Dave was there. "Oh," she said, "okay." And so of course, but that time of having to blanket right out of our heads so that he didn't know, he actually didn't. And that morning when I was having to get the kids up, because Chas had been gigging the night before, so he was sound asleep, and I'd got all in a suitcase the kids' clothes to put on because they were going to be on the show. And I felt almost guilty creeping out the house about 8 o'clock in the morning. A car was picking us up with this suitcase and the 3 kids. And I don't even know where I said. Probably told him I was taking the kids to Brent Cross. More than likely. And when we got there to where they were filming it, it was Eamon Andrews. They were doing a show, and they'd put a show up. They said they were going to film up, put over to Australia. But of course, it was all a ruse. And he went in there. But when they came back, when we were out in the studio and we were up in the dressing room, I never forget it. I could smell Chas's cigar because he used to smoke Castello cigars. And I thought, he never knew. And he said afterwards, he went, "How long did you know?" He said, "You kept that quiet." I said, "Longer than you realise." I said, "It was so difficult. It really, really was."
What an amazing thing what an amazing tribute. And they don't do that anymore, do they?
No. And it was great. It was...
so did they find people from his past that he was sort of...
Yeah, I know. With Dave, they had his old boss. And it's where he used to turn up, because he'd been gigging the night before, because he was in a band. He would turn up late for work. And so he'd say, he was off stage because they used to say something and see if the star could recognise it. And he said, "I remember when old Dave used to turn up late," and because they knew who it was. "Oh, yeah." But they had some of the Spurs team on there that night. Lonnie Donegan, he came on. It was a really good night, and they loved it. They really loved the warmth of the whole show.
Yeah,
and it was great.
Brilliant.
It was good. It was nice.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the two of them were together all the time, like you were saying earlier. That you and Chas were a marriage of love, and Chas and Dave were a marriage of music.
They were, because if Chas wasn't with me, he was on the road with Dave.
Yeah,
and that is what's lovely now, because I do meet up with Dave quite often. We go and have dinner somewhere, or I'll go around for coffee, and he'll suddenly start talking. He said, "Oh, yeah, I remember when we was in, we were in Chichester, and we went out for so," and it's another part of Chas's life I didn't know about.
Yeah.
Or I'll start talking about something about Sue, because Sue and I, because the boys were on the road together, Chas was quite happy to be at home.
Yeah.
But so Sue and I would go on holiday. No, we would, when the boys went to Australia, and they were there for 2 months, I took the kids. The headmaster weren't too happy, but I thought the travel experience that those kids are going to have, which they got. And so we went, and then when we were in Australia, the boys were going on to, where were they going? I think it was Malaysia, I think they were going on to. And we thought, well, we won't go there. So we took me, Sue, and 3 kids, went to Tonga. I mean, it's awful what's happened there recently, because it's exactly where we were. Yeah. And we were there for a week. The kids never experienced anything like it in their lives. And I used to say to the kids, right, you've got to do, like with my son, dear Nick, a project book, so that, you know, when you get back, you can show your teacher exactly what you've learned. Yeah. And everything about Australia. And this one particular day, he wanted to go swimming. I said, well, you do your project book, and then you can go swimming. And he's beavering away, and he's done it. And I said, hold on. And he'd drawn Sydney Bridge, because we could see that outside the hotel window. But he had Superman flying over the top. And but when we did get home and they went to school, I remember him coming home from school one day, and he was so excited because the teacher had done a lesson on Australia, and I reckon he did it purely to see. And Nick answered every single question. He knew what the capital was and everything else, and it was boxes ticked. Brilliant. You know, he'd had a wonderful time. Yeah, excellent. Yeah. Well, I mean, we've been talking for hours, hour and a half, ages. I might have to put this into 2 halves. This has been brilliant. Can I just ask how, obviously, you lost Chas 3 years ago? Yeah, just over 3. And then obviously a year after that, we went into lockdown. Yeah. So a bit like me, you've kind of been home alone. Yeah. Has it been a sort of a comfort to have sort of the acting to look forward to? God, yeah. And how have you sort of used the time creatively? Creatively is now, nothing will stop me. I look forward excitedly to my future, whereas before all my thoughts were with Chas and supporting Chas. And there was a lot of work or places or jobs I wouldn't do because it took me away. But now nothing will stop me, you know, and I'm excited, and I don't care whether it's theatre, film, TV. I'm very excited about the future. Yeah. And it's good to have that. Yeah. I'd hate to be just at home, not wondering what to do from day to day. Yeah. Because it's an exciting not knowing. I've always loved, and I've always been, for as long as I've known, I've never liked the comfortable 9 to 5. I love not knowing what's round the corner. Yeah. And a phone call can change things. Yeah. And that's exciting to me. Yeah. Mm. Well, that phone call from Eastenders might just change things. Well, I've had the phone call and I've got the job, so I'm hoping that I do. I've done a good job on that one, and who knows what comes from there. Yeah. You know, but none of us know what's the exciting bits in our lives. It's exciting, yeah. And I say, you know, we're in a similar situation. My husband died 4 years ago, but the excitement of kind of this next step. Yeah. And obviously, you know, you're never going to forget what you had and what was there. No. And you'll cherish that. But I think we both know that our husbands would want us to be excited and want us to be live our lives. Yeah. Get out there and do stuff. Oh, very much so. Yeah. And I've got 3 wonderful children and 2 wonderful grandchildren. Yeah. So I'm very, very lucky. Yeah. Oh, it's been lovely to talk to you, Joan. Wonderful talking to you, Jackie. Talk to you all evening. In fact, I'm going to talk to you all evening. Yeah, of course. We're going to have some dinner. Well, we're going to leave it there. So thank you very much for watching, those of you that are watching on YouTube. And thank you for listening wherever you are listening. And thank you once again to Joan. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.